Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Around the Emirates podcast with Sara Mousa, where I speak to guests from across UAE about topics you want to hear about. Today, I'm joined by the incredible Beth Clay. Hi, Beth.
Hello, Sarah. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. So I invited Beth to be on the show because she is a finance wellness consultant slash coach, and she's also a communications savvy expert. Please, Beth, tell me your story.
Yeah, so thank you for that lovely introduction. But yes, I wear two hats. It's always one of those when I go to these networking things, and I always say, you tell me what you do first, because I'll go off on lots of different tangents. But yes, as you rightly said, I am a financial wellness consultant. So the nature of that involves going to lots of corporate workplaces and providing sessions with their employees to help them develop a healthy relationship with money. So it's a slightly different angle to how we approach money. And it's something I've been fascinated in for quite some time. But yeah, I also work with people one-on-one and I work with couples as well. So very much get into the core of what's causing that financial stress, but also, you know, how can we move on and manage our money effectively? And so we feel like we've got that strong relationship with it. So that generally is, as I say, I've trained over the years in financial coaching and planning to be able to do that, and I love it. I love the impact it gives, so much impact, and every day when I'm coaching clients and just seeing the results of that, like how it's transformed their lives, really, just that kind of the calls that we have, the tools I can give them. It honestly is so rewarding, because when it comes to money, I mean, yeah, like it's one of those things that everybody struggles with some point in their lives with it, but we just don't talk about it. So to be able to help people out is amazing. But yes, and I also on the separate side have a communications and branding consultancy as well. So very much they are quite interlinked in ways. Because a lot of the nature of the way that I talk about money, you have to communicate it properly. So, but yeah, work with lots of founders across the region as well to develop their story and what they want to be known for and help position them in the market.
Wow, it's incredible you've been able to kind of wear two hats for so long, and they're two very different types of hats, right? One is about, finance and math, investment, how to deal with your money. The other hat is how to communicate yourself and PR yourself. So what would you say has been your biggest challenge in your journey so far?
So, I mean, it has, I guess, to some degree, like juggling the two, because ultimately it's one of those things. As a business owner, you've got to think about where are the areas that I want to grow and scale quickly, but where do I invest my time? So reinvesting back into the business, then also upskilling myself, making sure that I know exactly what I'm talking about and where I am and those sort of things. So it's been a fine juggle of all of that, and I'm also a mum of two children. So juggling all this, I mean, that's the thing with entrepreneurship is we go into it, and a lot of us do, so that we can have the flexibility and work around, our lives and make something. And I think it's that passion, particularly for me, really changing lives through financial wellness, and also the people I can influence at a global scale on both sides of the business really keeps me going. But yeah, of course, like getting up every day, and sometimes it's like you never know what's coming in that month or what's happening, and it's that motivation. I talk to friends back home and they're like, I don't know how you do it, like, you're like networking 3-4 times a week, like how do you get the motivation to do that, or how do you get the motivation to just always be showing up online to. And I was like, you have to, like if you're not visible, you're invisible. So I have to PR myself, so that I'm known in the business, in the sector, and take those opportunities to go on the TV, take the opportunities to go on the radio, tell my story, you know. But as I said, I think it's that motivation. And often there are so many times that I felt like before I went into entrepreneurship, as I was in corporate for 16 years, and I felt like, it's going to be fine. Like I know there's going to be, I forgot what the saying is now, but those months when it feels a little bit volatile, feast and famine, that's what I'm looking at. So those months when it feels lighter in the months, and I planned for that financially in my mind, but mentally, I think that's one of the hardest things to get over, is that sense of when you kind of feel like business feels a little bit way away, or things aren't quite working out in the way that you thought they were going to, you suddenly, your mindset, and I know it's a cliche, everybody talks about mindset, but it really goes down that path of what if this fails? What if I'm back doing the thing I like, that I moved away from, and I built up so much energy and everything to get to this part? What if I feel like I'm going to have to go backwards again? And even every one of, I can now tell you, all the people who look successful online, they're feeling the same way, or will have felt the same way along the way. It's that mindset belief that those days when it feels like it's tough and you're getting a no and you're getting rejections, all those sort of things, you've got to just keep going and believe in that you're giving something valuable to the world. People want to buy from you, and then you're making a difference. And that's the thing that kind of keeps you going. But it is tough, absolutely. And it's hard as well. In the workplace, we have colleagues around us that we can talk to, and you're all in it together, and you've got, as I said, that comfort of the paycheck at the end of the month. So for a lot of people who are, some people just living a little bit above the firing line, but just quietly quitting sort of thing, just doing the bare, there are a lot of people who could do that and kind of get away with it. But as you've been an entrepreneur, you have to just do everything. And it's just that difference in terms of, like I say, the mindset and pushing yourself to keep going and backing yourself. Because I say, you haven't got your colleagues around you to be like, no, you're great, you can go for that promotion, you can get this, you see. So it's lots of different things, but
Yeah.
it is worth it. I do love it.
That is so beautiful. Like, you speak with such passion about what you do, and you obviously love the challenges that come at you every day, and you have such a positive outlook. And this brings me to my next question for you, Beth. Is there something that you feel was like a momentous kind of milestone in your journey, or something that happened to you that you're like, wow, like this really helped shape who I am today?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go back to, and this probably it's been the biggest challenge. So in terms of answering that other question, but I would say that a year ago, so over a year and 3 months ago, so a while ago when I was still in corporate. So this is, I was building the business on the side, and an opportunity came up to go on Shark Tank Dubai, the UAE version.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, and I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm going to take that opportunity. And my mentor at the time was like, I said, look, I'm so new. I don't have the, like the P&L and those sort of things to show for, because there's so much when you apply for these, the programs, you have to obviously demonstrate all the financials and everything else. And I was so new in the journey, as we often watch Shark Tank, and we see people who've got an idea and they're already 2-3 years down the line, and they're just seeking that extra bit of investment. Whereas for me, it was never about the money. I've always backed myself in that sense. It was about the mentorship, to think about ways in which I could scale beyond, just me being the person. And so, do you know what? I think taking that opportunity, I debated for a long time whether I was ready or not. In my head, I kept saying to myself, I'm not ready for this. But I went for it, and as we know in the industry, in communications, like, it's always good to have PR, or PR to some degree is good. So let's take this opportunity and see it as a learning, and I am not going to lie, I was absolutely scared, absolutely petrified. It was the hardest thing to go and stand on a stage. I can't even tell you, the room was massive. A huge room, all the lights, cameras. Obviously, you've got the panel of judges. I literally remember just standing there and I froze. Like, I spoke, I was fine. I did the pitch, but I have one of these things that so many of us who are public speakers still do. That I just got cotton mouth, so my mouth I could not. I was trying to talk. Thankfully, the IT, because you have the IT broke. It was fine. I said this was a blessing in disguise, because my screen, because I did the presentation with the screen. And thankfully at that point I could ask for water, because I was like, I cannot even talk. Like, but manager, you never see any of that on TV. But like, thankfully I was able to go back and do the talk again, the pitch. And it was fine. My husband was in the background watching, but yeah, I mean, gosh, you've got like all the cameraman, everybody. You probably got about 50 people in the studio, and these 4 that you're pitching for. And I was the last one of the day. I want to say it was something like 9 o'clock at night. It was crazy. And the questions, obviously, like, they were good. They were hard questions. A lot digging into kind of like projections and stuff like that, which I'd already done the maths around. But it was hard. It was something that I never thought. I remember but the advice that I got, and as I said, that it's been over a year now, and they recently aired it on part of season 3. But reflecting back, it was one of those things where, as I said, the feedback I got was like, we love what you've got. It's great. Like, you're really helping a lot of people out, but it's so early stages, keep building yourself to be the subject matter expert in the area and come back to us. Come back when you're ready, like, we'd love to see in the future. But they gave me some really good, like, thoughts and advice. And at the time, you were like a rabbit in headlights, because you're like taking it, but you're like letting it sink in, trying to let it sink in. But there's so much going on around you. But really reflecting on that, as I say, I came off, and it was all, like I said, it was positive feedback. But there were questions, obviously, where they were hard, and saying, like, ultimately, you need to still build your audience, and there's things that you haven't done. But they believed in the mission. And obviously at the time I was very much focused on women. And so that was the key part of my business. Now I've adapted that. I do still help women, and I have a membership model that is just aimed for women to have that personalized support. But the business goes beyond that. So I'm obviously helping out men and women in the corporates and things like that. But it really taught me some valuable business lessons as well, and thinking about ways in which I could scale and give me food for thought in ways in which I can, I say, take it to the next level and think about, if you remove me, what does that look like, and what does all that thing? So we've done a lot of work in that. But yeah, I mean, the craziest thing, like I say, I did that pitch, finished at got home like 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I remember opening up the laptop the next day at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and just logging onto my normal corporate day job as if nothing had happened. And I remember just being like, like a rabbit, like, how was I just pitched on Shark Tank last night, and here I am logging on to my normal day job. It was just that nobody talks about. Like, you always think that those people who pitch on those programs are like, that's all they do. But actually, when you're building a business, often you've got a year, 2 years, or 3 years, however long, still doing the corporate job till you get to that point where you believe in yourself and take that next step. And so, as I say, these sort of things, it's just crazy. And during that whole time when I was in corporate, I was taking annual leave left, right, and center, just to focus on the business, to do the workshops, to do the trainings, to do everything to get it off the ground. And I think that's parts that in itself was challenging. My weekends were gone. I was constantly, if I was recording podcasts, I was doing that. And when I reflect back on it, taking that time away from the family for the very reason I wanted to be more with the family. But, you just have to make those little sacrifices. So I would say a very pivotal point. I don't know if that's a word. Pivotal, that's a word. Point was, the Shark Tank experience. And I think, as I say, coming off the back of that, reflecting about how to do things a bit differently. And those sort of things take time, right? So when you're starting out a business, as I say, spread myself between 2 different areas, which I explained is obviously challenging. But ultimately, I work in the field of finance, right? You can't, for many of us, don't have the luxury of being able to go off and start from scratch building our business. We have to have another career, and you need to diversify your income streams, which is what I'm a huge fan of. Hence why I'd spread myself across the area. So those things that perhaps the advice that I had from child, it's just I'm implementing it all, and it's just taking that little bit extra. But you know what, it's one of those, when you think you put yourself out there, and I spoke to people, they're like, oh, maybe don't talk too much about that experience, because you didn't get the funding. But actually I like to talk about it, because do you know what, it's not all rosy, and it's not always what we see on Instagram and everything else of people pitching and getting the funding, and that's what it looks like. Actually, it's raw. It's putting yourself forward before you're ready, taking those risks and learning from them, and seeing if they do pay off. And like I say, that they all mold you into making you the person that you are. And I would say, I've done lots of, since then and before then, been on radio interviews, TV, stages, taught and did nothing compared. Everyone's like, what is the scariest thing? I was like, still think standing on that stage, pitching to 4 of the biggest world's investors, probably the scariest thing I've ever done. Yeah.
Wow. I like literally like my jaws dropping from like how crazy inspirational your story is. I'm like, this woman has two kids. She has literally both sides of her brains that like usually people are like right brain or left brain. You got both brains, girl. Like, you rocking it with your finance, your communications, how bold you are, how well you manage your time, how well you network. You went on like freaking Shark Tank, dude. Like you're awesome. And I'm just like, I don't even have any other questions left for you. Like you've said everything that would have been brought out in this interview, and I'm just grateful that you've shared your story with me. Like it's so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot when you talk about it like that. It's and for a while I couldn't talk about Shark Tank. Obviously, I can only talk about it now because of it's aired. But it's
Mm.
one of those things I've been itching to kind of speak about because yeah, it's huge, right? And we can't forget those experiences, and there will be those moments, and they do define you. There's so much emotion that goes into it. And as I said, it's just taking a risk on yourself. And I could talk all day about the mindset of being an entrepreneur, and you think you're ready for it. You listen to the podcasts of those people who've done it before you, but you're figuring it out as you go along. And it's, as I spoke to people last night, I was at a networking event and we were talking about, I was like saying, I often feel like I'm in the weeds a lot of the time. And, I'm used to in corporate, like directing teams and this, that, and the other. And they're like, no, absolutely. A lot of the job being an entrepreneur definitely is feeling like you're in the weeds as much as it feels like those people who've made it are directing it from the sidelines. So, this part does feel very messy, but good messy in a good way.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Beth, for sharing your story today. I am honestly so inspired by you and motivated by you. And I'm just glad that my listeners have been able to take a little bit of a glimpse of your life story and hopefully they can take a life lesson from it too.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the platform to talk about it.
Of course, always a pleasure. And yeah, I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.